guys, my name is Matthew Park, and if you're thinking about applying to the University of Chicago, I'm sure that at some point or another that the topic of extracurriculars has crossed your mind. And if it has, I just want to shed some insight, because I'm not an expert when it comes to college admissions, but as someone who didn't get the most stellar grades in high school, but who was very much involved in extracurriculars, I want to tell you a bit about some of the things I did and some of the things that I suggest that you can do too. And of course, when I'm talking about extracurriculars, I'm talking about them in all different forms, whether it be after-school activities, internships, paid jobs, clubs at your school, community service, volunteer activities, whatever they may be. So, regardless of what kind of extracurriculars you do or what kind of fields you're most passionate about, I would say in general, colleges are looking for three things when it comes to extracurriculars: commitment, leadership, and creation. So, when it comes to commitment, I'm really referring to a couple of things. One, I'm talking about how long you've done an extracurricular for. So for example, if you've been part of the same club, or perhaps you took piano lessons for all 4 years of high school, or perhaps throughout 3 out of your 4 years of high school, that would definitely help you a lot. So for example, I was in Model United Nations, Model UN, for 4 years, and I was also in the Academic Decathlon for all 4 years of high school. And being involved for that long really shows like what kind of, that you're not doing it just to, you're not just dipping your feet into the water, but you're actually passionate about what you do, and you feel that whatever, activity, club, class, or, some sort of after school activity that you're doing is something that's so worth your time that you're willing to dedicate 4 years to it. So that's one thing. But I would say commitment also refers to what you do with your extracurriculars. So for example, if you're taking guitar lessons, right? Are you just taking lessons, or are you also performing? Are you also doing something else with that extracurriculars? Are you branching out? Are you doing other things with that opportunity that you have? So I would say commitment refers to a couple of different things, but as a general rule, I would say quality over quantity. It's better to have a few extracurriculars that you're really passionate about and that you really stick to, rather than just having, sprinkles of commitment here and there. So everyone talks about how consistency is key. And so being committed to your extracurriculars is important to show that you're passionate about whatever field you want to get into, whether that be medicine or music or whatever it is that you want to study in UChicago. But I would say that commitment to your extracurriculars is also important for another reason: letters of recommendation. So another thing that I did pretty consistently throughout high school was I would tutor kids every week after school, elementary and middle schoolers who would often, struggle in academics, struggle in school, whatever the case may be. The people who were running this organization, the staff members, they saw that I was committed. I showed up almost every week, and that I really cared about these kids. And so, one thing that really benefited me when I applied to colleges was that I not only got letters of rec from a couple of teachers, but I was also able to get a letter of rec from the woman who was running the tutoring program, because she saw that I was committed and thought that she wanted to help me, basically. And I think that that's a very important thing. So if you want to get good letters of rec from someone who's running, a club or an organization that you're part of, please, try to be as committed as you can within the time and within the bounds of how much time and energy you have. So I would say consistency is key, commitment is key, and now let's move on to number 2, leadership. So I would say that leadership is a very important aspect when it comes to, talking about your extracurriculars, because at the end of the day, it's one thing to say that you're part of a club or an organization. It's another thing to say that you are the president or the vice president or the treasurer. So for example, when I was in Model United Nations, in 11th grade, I applied for a leadership position as treasurer, and I lost the election. But then in 12th grade, I decided to apply again, and this time I won the election. So I think that there are a couple of things to take away from this. One, you shouldn't give up on the idea of leadership, even if you failed before, even if you don't consider yourself a natural born leader. But also, it's important to not only, state that you have this position on your applications, but also to make sure that you take initiative from those leadership positions. So find a way to use your position as president, vice president, treasurer, whatever it may be, to improve your club in some way, to advance your organization in some way. Do whatever you can in your power. And I think that the importance of leadership goes beyond, some of the cookie cutter extracurriculars that you might do, such as, Model United Nations or Academic Decathlon or whatever it may be, because even clubs that do not seem academic on the surface, such as, for example, let's say there's a ping pong club at your school or a chess club at your school, there's still ways to find leadership and to be able to use that to show that you're passionate about something. So for example, it's one thing to say that you're part of a ping pong club or a chess club, but it's another thing to say that you have hosted a tournament at your school, or to say that you've started a fundraiser to help for a good cause. And there's definitely ways to work around some of these organizations, whether you think that they are academic in nature or not. I think that leadership ultimately, it shows not only how passionate you are about a certain subject or field, but also it shows that other people respect you and that, other people look up to you in some way. And I think for now, we can move on to number 3, creation. So what do I mean when I talk about creation? Well, creation refers to something very simple. To start your own club at your school, or to start your own organization. Perhaps start your own business. To create something of your own, rather than to join something that already exists. For a while in high school, I wasn't the type of person to do this sort of thing. By the beginning of 12th grade was when I finally jumped on that train. So my friend and I created something called the Stocks and Investments Club. I definitely think that for anyone who wants to stand out in a college application, definitely try to create something. So there's one other little organization that I created when I was in 12th grade. It's called Tutor Recruiter. And basically, I used it to help replace the tutoring program that I was a part of from 9th to 12th grade, because when school funds started to go down, and especially after the outbreak of COVID, a lot of kids weren't getting the tutoring that they needed anymore. And I was thinking, well, what's an alternative that I could provide for them so that they could still get the help that they need, whether it be in math or in English or whatever it may be. And so I decided to create this little organization called Tutor Recruiter. I got a few of my friends on board. And so at the end of the day, I would say that the 3 key ways to make your extracurriculars more impressive and stand out more to college admissions officers is commitment, leadership, and creation. There are last few comments I want to make about extracurriculars before I go. I would say it's very important to find at least one thing that you can do that helps your community in some way, whether it be volunteering at a food drive or some sort of community service or a tutoring thing. Just as a side note, even though I talked a lot about contributing to your community when I talk about extracurriculars, I also think that it would be very helpful to have at least one extracurricular, if you can, that you are able to spread not just to your local school or community, but also onto a statewide or nationwide level. Really bring something to scale. So for example, I was the co-founder for a club in my school called the Emperor's New Clothes. And we founded a website called tenc.us. And that website still exists today. And I was a writer and publisher on that website. I was very active on it. And, not only did we make sure that kids in our school were engaged into this club, but we also created platforms where we could talk to kids from other schools and, involve, other communities that were interested in politics or the environment who really want to get on board with this project. So I think that as important as it is to try to engage in your local community, I also think that if you can find one club or organization that you can really bring to a statewide or nationwide level, that would also be very impressive and also very appealing to college admissions officers, whether they be at UChicago or anywhere else. And I would say lastly, as I said earlier, quality over quantity. You want to find a few activities that you can commit to, and also a few activities that are at least somewhat consistent with your profile that show who you really are. So for example, if on your college app you show how passionate you are about medicine, you want to make sure you have at least one extracurricular that is related to medicine in some way. Same goes for any other field. If you say that you're passionate about music in your Common App essay or in your UChicago essay, try to find at least one extracurricular that can back that up. And I wish you guys the best of luck. I really do. And well, thank you for watching. And now let's grab something to eat.